It's time to talk LSU baseball with Mike Scarborough and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. This is Batter Up.
All right, Super Regional Eve, Baton Rouge Super Regional. Been out at the box all day today. Practice this morning, all the player and coaches interviews, and it's hot. I think West Virginia's been all over the place. I imagine the humidity might be a little bit more than they're used to, but it's going to be very interesting tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And we welcome in Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball to talk about it.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I saw, West Virginia earlier this year, so I have some history with them. I saw them in a couple of games at the University of Houston in a series they won. And, they're one of those teams that, if they get on a roll, they're really good. I mean, you look at these guys offensively, Logan Sauve, their catcher's a really nice player. Skylar King is electric out there in center field. Jace Reinhardt's had some big hits. Sam White makes really hard contact. Gavin Kelly is a freshman that will end up being one of the better players in college baseball over the duration of his career. And so they've got depth offensively. They've got some nice arms. I think where I come down on the series is I think the teams actually match up pretty well offensively, like pretty comparable. But I think where the difference is here is just LSU in terms of the starting pitching. I just think if you look at West Virginia overall with their starting pitching, Griffin Kern's a really nice arm, but he would be. If we're being honest, if you made a rotation, he'd be behind Cade, he'd be behind Ianson, he would be behind Casey Evans. He would be a midweek starter at LSU, and he's their primary front-end guy. That's not to say he doesn't have potential. This is a guy that 3.16 ERA in 94 innings. I saw Gavin Van Kempen, when I saw, the Mountaineers at U of H. Again, really big arm, actually. It's a fastball up to 95, 96. He could be a little inconsistent. So, again, a lot of nice pieces here. It's just LSU has more consistent overall pieces.
Well, the thing that's impressive about West Virginia, when you look at them and you start trying to read up on them and understand them, you look at the Big 12 standings and how they ran away with that league. To go to Clemson and win that, they've got the most wins on the road of any baseball team, and they do it like you said with small ball. They're not exactly a great fielding team either. So I'm trying to understand the formula as to how they've gotten here.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, if we're being honest, they got through a tough regional, but if we're being honest, if you look at the Big 12 schedule, and I'm not trying to downplay what they've done this year, but if you look at the Big 12 schedule, I think they played maybe the second or third easiest schedule of intra-conference schedule of any team in that league. And so, again, that's not to say they're not a really good team, but, they're not – I think for them to win this regional, I think – LSU is going to have to play, I wouldn't say bad baseball, but they're going to have to be very consistent for, WVU to win the series.
Anderson, Ianson, enough to carry LSU this weekend? Do you think it's
I think it is. Yeah, you and I talked last week about this. I felt like LSU is in a more dangerous position in a regional than a super. I think we all saw that over the weekend in the Baton Rouge Regional, that played out. If you're an LSU fan, thank God for Casey Evans and the way he pitched in that moment. But I think now they've got that regional out of the way, with Anderson, Ianson, Evans, for me, would have to be my starter in game 3 if I'm Jay. I think he's earned it with the way he pitched in that final game out of the bullpen. I just think, you condense things, that really helps LSU. And that's why I like this team a lot, if they win this series going in Omaha, because – Omaha is very condensed in terms of what you need to use pitching wise. It's not condensed in terms of schedule, but in terms of what you need to use pitching wise, it's condensed because you can go Anderson, Ianson, Evans, and then come back with Anderson and Ianson. So you realistically could get through all of Omaha. You really don't want to have to do this, but you could get through Omaha with using 4 arms if you wanted to. Arizona, back in 2012, threw 4 arms in Omaha, I believe. Their starters all threw each threw twice, and their closer, I think it was Matthew Troop, through every single game, and they did not use a single reliever outside of those 4 guys in Omaha.
Okay, you've had, I guess, a week to talk about it, think about it, sleep on it. The SEC and regional performances and down to 4 schools this week. Any rhyme or reason for it?
I think it's just baseball. I mean, here's the thing about college baseball right now, and it's kind of funny because, you hear people and they kind of bring LSU into the discussion. You saw people over the last couple of years say, oh, with the transfer portal, NIL and things like that, schools like LSU and all these, Ole Miss and all these other schools, the gap's going to widen. And I think we're all seeing the gap close. I mean, I don't think it'll ever just totally close to where, ULM or something is on the same level as LSU, but for a weekend in a regional, every one of these teams has guys that can beat you. I mean, Murray State over the weekend against Ole Miss. I mean, I don't know about you, from watching those games. I mean, that wasn't a fluke. Like, they were just a really good team that had Ole Miss on the ropes consistently. So I just think in college baseball right now, again, I've always said this. I think college baseball, if you're an athletic department that isn't an LSU or isn't a Texas or a Texas A&M school like that, the easiest pathway to getting national recognition is to put money into college baseball. And I think these schools have figured that out.
Well, and then it's also the transfer portal. I mean, it kind of segues into a question that Kenny submitted about Auburn and Dutton. I mean, Dutton comes from LSU, and look what he's done for them, being their number 1 guy.
Yeah. Micah Bucknam was the number 1 guy for DBU this year. So I mean, it gives you an idea. You got 2 former Tigers who were number 1s, one for a super regional team who probably, I mean, I think they'll end up in Omaha. The other one was the number 1 for a, conference championship team that, was in the Baton Rouge Regional. So it's just interesting. And, this is only going to get, more and more parity. And the reason why is because once this house settlement is approved, if it ever gets approved, you're going to go from 40 to 34-man rosters. So when you do that, that's 6 roster spots on every single team in the SEC, by the way, that gets cut. Well, those guys got to go somewhere, and guess what's going to happen? Those guys are going to Little Rock. They're going to, ULL. They're going to ULM,
you brought up Little Rock, and I know you saw him and texted me a little bit, and I tell you what, that was a Coach Curry and his press conferences. The folks around here have a lot of respect for that man, and you covering it, and schools making changes, and is he a guy that's all of a sudden scaling up? I mean, is somebody gonna be looking to pull him from Little Rock?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be in this carousel, just because this carousel, frankly, has just been very low key. But he'll definitely be on the radar moving forward. Dan Skirka at Murray State's another guy that I don't know if you watched his press conferences or like his interviews after games at Ole Miss over the weekend, but just an incredibly impressive guy. So yeah, it's funny when you see these coaches that, I've known Chris for 10, 12 years, and he's kind of flown way under the radar, and all of a sudden now everybody's kind of talking about it. So it's just funny to see how quick one weekend can really change the fortunes of your whole career.
Well, I can tell you, we posted all of his post games, and the comment sections are still going all these days later. Talking about how impressive his group was and giving them credit, and but they gave LSU all they wanted, and that's just, I mean, Kendall, what if they would have pulled that off? I mean, that they were already the no team with their RPI and a losing record and all that, had never gotten to a regional final, right? I mean, what if they would have pulled it off?
If they would have pulled that off, Jay's front yard would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, there's been some donuts in his front yard that night.
Well, I got to ask you this. Mississippi State's got a new coach. We see the salary.
Yeah.
I saw a graphic today. I think where Jay's like 6th or 7th in the SEC now with salary.
How about that?
1.7. You got Vitalo out there, 3.3 million. LSU at some point is going to have to belly up to the bar, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, in the era of overpriced contracts, and don't get me wrong, I've known Brian forever; he's a friend. But I mean, Mississippi State is overpaying for that guy. I mean, $2.9 million is a lot of money. for a coach who, let's be honest, just missed the NCAA tournament. That's not to say he's not an incredible coach. I think Brian is. I think he'll do a great job there. But $2.9 million is overdoing a little bit. For what LSU is paying Jay and what the return they're getting out of it, I mean, that's a hell of an ROI. But you can bet that Jay Johnson probably printed out my tweet and probably had a courier send that over to a Scott Woodward.
Okay, well, I now need to go find your tweet. I didn't even know you had tweeted something. But
I tweeted out the top 5 salary average. I tweeted out the top 5 average salaries in the SEC, and Jay was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'll retweet you. And I know he's not going to love that. So,
yeah, but I wonder if he's that guy. Is he?
Not really.
Heck, I don't even know who his agent is.
Yeah, he just wants to win, man. I do. He just wants to win.
Yeah. Key to this series for LSU, and where does it get into a danger zone? And I mean, look, there's some people out there thinking that if you start trying to pick upsets in super regionals, I mean, I've seen a few people out there picking West Virginia in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that if you look at LSU and West Virginia, I think for West Virginia to win this series and upset LSU, they're going to need to get some pitching performances that we're not expecting. And I just think for a team like that to go in the box, I think the most troublesome aspect of LSU's postseason is out of the way. I think LSU wins this thing in 2.
Yeah, we got one of their pitchers, Bassinger, for an interview earlier today, and I'm looking at him, and he's really on the small side, but it is kind of impressive how they've gotten here. All right, we're brought to you each week. Batter Up is brought to you by our buddy Kenny Haines, and let's go ahead and hear from Kenny.
Kenny Haines is a proud 1989 graduate of LSU Law School with a passion for justice. Kenny stands out as the only lawyer in the state, board certified in both appellate practice and family law. Drawing from 34 years of trial experience, Kenny has navigated the most complex aspects of real people's lives. If you need help in Northwest Louisiana with a family issue, legal issue, or a highly skilled trial attorney, call Kenny 318-222-2100.
Kendall, you heading anywhere this weekend? Or you again? And is anybody from D1 baseball in Baton Rouge?
Man, we have with the portal and the coaching carousel going absolutely crazy. I am on portal and carousel duty, so I get to watch everything. I actually get to watch every game for once. So looking forward to it. And then I head off to Omaha on Wednesday, where I'm expecting to see a few thousand of people in purple and gold. So looking forward to it.
Well, so do you have any LSU portal news?
I think
I'll tell you this: Jay Johnson did have some portal prospects walking around the stadium earlier this afternoon.
I do like LSU's chances of getting some of these guys. We'll find out.
Any names? Because I didn't get any.
Not right now, Mike. You know how I roll.
All right. It's early. But Jay did bring that up in his press conference about how, he was trying to get kids in the portal and they were making decisions before the season had ever ended because they were still, in supers and Omaha and everything else. It's
kind of crazy. I go back and I'll tell the story. I don't think Jay would care. But I'll tell the story. When they won the national championship a couple years ago with Skeens and those guys, I mean, I think Jay and I were talking the next morning about like 8 or 9 a.m. about, he was wanting my take on where some kids were going out of the portal. And this is a guy that had just won a national championship, and by 8 and 9 o'clock the next morning was already on the phone, like, neck deep in the portal. That's just kind of the way college baseball and frankly college athletics is now. There's, when you're a head coach in a major place like LSU, like, you have about 24 hours or less to celebrate your national championship, and then everybody's gunning for you in the portal. So it just never stops.
3 SEC teams make it to Omaha.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I think LSU takes care of business. I think Auburn, in a really good series, by the way, I think wins. But that Coastal winning that series would not shock me. They're really good, and obviously Arkansas, Tennessee is going to be pretty exciting. I like Arkansas, but boy, I would not want to have to beat Tennessee like in 2 series in a year to get to Omaha. That's a tall task, but I do think the Hogs are up for it. Kind of like LSU, I felt like their best chance to lose was in a regional, and they were able to get out of it.
Is it just an automatic statement every year where you hear something along the lines of, well, if Van Horn doesn't win it this year, he never will? He just gets to say it. They get to say that about him every year.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think he's one of those guys that will win one. Maybe this is the year. I mean, without some of these SEC teams there, the field is slightly diluted. But hell, I really like the way North Carolina is playing right now. If you watch them today, I think they beat Arizona 18-2. I've got them playing LSU in the national championship series. I'm going to stick to that.
We had that on in the big tent outside Alex Box while we were.
Ooh, they look good.
Doing our work, and they were just laying the wood to Arizona. Arizona didn't look like they were just ready to go back home. But
yeah, we'll see how it looks tomorrow. But the Hill's looking pretty good.
All right, Kendall, great stuff as usual, man. Thanks for fitting us in, and we'll talk soon.
We'll probably see you in a few days.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
All right, later, man. Bye.
Bye.